Here's how apologists bullshit about biblical slavery.
The Bible regulates slavery according to you. I say it clearly advocates it. And this is a problem because the Bible is a list of things that God supposedly conveyed to humanity. And among those are the Ten Commandments. Why would a moral, loving God who thinks that slavery is immoral and knows what's going to happen not include in the Ten Commandments, where he's got other things about graven images, thou shalt not own another human being as property, which is allowed in Deuteronomy to be passed on to your kids?
One of the things that makes the nature of that question not unfair but difficult in this setting is there's an air of equivocation going on here. I think most of you associate slavery with how it was experienced here in America 2 centuries ago in the Deep South. In the ancient Near East culture...
Hang on. I am going to let you finish.
But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
But this is kind of unfair, because my specific formulation of the question was about owning people as property. It wasn't about American slavery or being mean.
And what I'm trying to say is that in the ancient Near East culture, in Israel, slavery was the social safety net. Do you know why slavery existed in the book of Exodus? It was to help people who could not pay their debts. It kept them out of debtor's prison. I'm sorry, but read the text in context. That's what it says. And at the end of every 7 years, those slaves were set free.
Indentured slavery was one form of slavery depicted in the Bible, but this only applies to Hebrews. There were other forms of slavery that were not a social safety net and that didn't stipulate release after 7 years. Essence of Thought has a great video on this subject.
The first thing to note is that this solely refers to Hebrew men who are either born free or have been set free at one point in their life. Hebrew women, those born into slavery, as well as people of different nations, are not included under these rules. Now I need to note that the word nation here is incredibly problematic for you because nation does not refer to the line in the sand concept we know of today. Instead, it refers to what we today would call ethnicity. That is the shared history of cultural practices and identity. So the slavery being described here is nearly identical to the slavery witnessed in the West following the Christianization of the Roman Empire and the spread of Christendom across the lands in which, over time, it became more justifiable to enslave people of other ethnicities, resulting in the image of slavery we most vividly recognize today. Enslaving people of African heritage is well and truly greenlit by this passage, which makes an in-group, out-group distinction on who you can and cannot enslave permanently.
Moses commands his followers to take sex slaves from the Midianites. He says, "Kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known man by lying with him. But all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves." Is Lucas of the opinion that sex slavery is a form of social safety net? Here's another informative passage.
Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy your slaves. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. You can bequeath them to your children as inherited property and can make them slaves for life, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. So here we have the Bible talking about not only the fact that you can own slaves from other nations for life, but the fact that you can inherit these slaves as well as property on that provision that they do come from other ethnic groups, these vaguely fluid nations at the time.
These slaves are not set free after 7 years. They can be slaves for life. I see no evidence that these slaves were paying off debts, but even if they were, why did Yahweh not think that the way we deal with debt today would be a better solution? Why didn't he recommend garnishing wages or some kind of bankruptcy procedure? Is the regulation of owning another person really the only thing he could come up with? I'd like to remind you again that I do have a Patreon.